chapter 193 to 195 to connect something with me so that I can get authorization over it. I need to touch it. Big Brother said my limit of touch is supposed to be the weight of an object. If not, I should theoretically be able to touch the ground and control the whole planet, which I can't do. So his theory seems to be true. That's why wind style is my best bet. Since the wind doesn't have that much weight to it, I can easily store tons of air under my authorization and cause tornadoes anywhere. The same goes for water. The sea, if I had control over the white sea around us, I would be the bane of every devil fruit user around. So currently, I am here, standing by the edge of the Shandora. I walk down the stairs that are going towards the white sea's edge. Brother Amon is standing beside me, guiding me. I stopped myself from thinking those bad things about him and rather appreciated his help. So, since we have figured out how your ability works on solid objects and liquid stored in a jar, it's time to figure out how it works on liquid that is roaming in the sea, Amon said. How would your weight system work on the sea, I wonder? Try touching the water. Shiki could control water, so you should be able to do the same. I nodded at his words and crouched down, placing my palm on top of the water, activating my power this time. Unlike when I touched the jar of water, I felt a huge weight over my shoulders as a click happened in my head. Immediately, the weight vanished off my shoulder and I felt connected with the water. And since the entirety of the sea weighs a lot, it seems I am connected with as much water as my limit weight is. But that's where the cheat comes into action. I raised my palm in the air, as a large chunk of water floated out of the sea, creating a gap that was filled as soon as it was created. Nice. Ignoring my brother's remark, I kept the chunk of water floating. The water weighs at least 100 kilograms, yet I feel no pressure on me. So it seems the pressure only comes when I try to connect with something, not when I maintain the connection. Now about the cheat. I dropped my hands on the sea again, as I activated my power. Immediately a huge weight fell on my shoulder as I felt connected with the water again. I again raised my palm in the air as another large chunk of water followed suit. The two chunks of water got connected with each other as I got authority over 200 kilograms liter of water at once. And since I don't feel any pressure while maintaining already connected objects, I can control the water freely. This is a cheat. Indeed. This way I can get connected with the whole sea. I can possibly even beat Brother Amon by trapping him in a huge ball of water. This power is alright, Aisa. Keep calm. Don't let power consume your head. Amon's sudden words caused her to freeze as she blinked. She looked at the hand on her head, ruffling her hair softly. Ah yes, you're right. Amon smiled again and said, alright, now I will vaporize the water. Try and see if you can control the vapor air released from it, since the vapor would essentially come from the water under your authority, while Aisa nodded her head. He did just as he said. He raised his hand and shot a plasma L-Thor at the chunk of 200-liter water as it got heated up, releasing steam, immediately turning into gas. Hot mist that covered the entirety of Shandora in an instant. Aisa frowned as it got hard for her to breathe. She focused on the mist around her that was created from her water, trying to see if she could control it. She slowly raised her hands and clasped them together. Immediately the mist rushed towards her as a massive orb of hot air was formed in front of her. Oh, it works, brother, look. Aisa cheerfully called out, but Amon just scratched his cheeks. Now, try to push the bond of the air particles together and transform it back to water again. Try if you can, Amon ordered as Aisa nodded, in a slightly detected face because of his interference at her achievement. After that, she focused as much as she could as a large frown formed on her face. Her breathing got heavier and sweat formed on her forehead. She didn't even blink, and just like that, 3 minutes passed by. She released a breath that she didn't know she was holding and dropped her hands. Brother, I can't. It's practically impossible. No, not really impossible. The correct term would be nigh impossible. I feel I am close to achieving it, but I can't do it, at least not yet. Amon drew his hand towards her hand and patted it, ruffling her hair and smiling at her. It's fine. You are already good to go. Don't push yourself. Aisa smiled too. Little compliments worked like a charm. Amon blinked. Oh yes. What is your fortune-telling thingy going? Any progress? Aisa's face suddenly darkened. No progress. Sorry. Again, it's alright. Not everyone learns things on their first try. Take it easy. Amon placed his hand on her head and ruffled her hair. Your observation hockey is your gift, your strongest point. Remember that guy I talked about, Shalakatakuri? His observation hockey is strong, yes, but you have more potential. Don't let small setbacks halt your will, Amon told the truth. Aisa can read people's minds from the age of 7. Amon only learned to guess people's thoughts at the age of 14, even though both Amon and Aisa had unlocked his observation in their infant days. While Amon trained vigorously, Aisa just lived peacefully, yet she is almost about to surpass him. Amon smiled at her face, as she smiled back. My previous joke of a mental defense doesn't work on Aisa anymore, because unlike before, she doesn't read the outer thoughts anymore. She directly reads one's mind from the root. The only way I am hiding my secrets is by blocking input and or scrambling my own neural impulses, thus forming a psychic shield. How it works is simple. Since the brain is made of neurons, and neurons travel by making electrical signals, Amon can create fake electrical signals in his brain and make anyone who tries to read his mind only see the fake lining. At the current level, this can't be called a shield, even if the name suggests such. It's just a way to bypass mind reading. The past 2 years, he has done less training on increasing his volts, since he already reached another cap after training inside the thunderclouds of Radiant Island, and rather, has done more training in creating abilities that he could think of or and remembers from different fictional series. The half-transparent shield that blocked Aisa's water bullet before was a self-made version of Raikage armor. It grants pretty impressive defensive capabilities. He created it after realizing his speed won't help him every time. He needed something to higher his defense as well, so he did. But these aren't the only techniques that he has formed. There are a few more dozens of everyday techniques and battle techniques that he has created the past 2 years. He is at his current peak, stronger than ever. Other than that, he has tried awakening his fruit too, simulated his brain to recreate a life-and-death situation and many more techniques. But he hasn't been able to awaken his fruit yet. He has one last card up his sleeve, and he was 80% sure it would work like a charm. Alright, Aisa, Amon suddenly broke the silence. Go call each of the scenes. I would need to do a practical presentation on what you're getting into and what type of strength you should look forward to. It's time for a small training session. Amon grinned viciously, fantasizing about how he would test his new techniques on the people who can get hit but not die. He felt anger brewing in his heart. Why did this happen? Bunch of nobodies, a bunch of kids. How did they ruin his paradise? Why? It's not that Arlong doesn't fear humans at all. It's just that outside the world government, there isn't any threat to him, or so he believes. So being beaten by a mere pirate wannabe, he felt his pride crumble down. Arlong was shackled inside his cell, along with his brothers. The rods that the cell was made of were strong enough for his incredible strength to not work on them. So he couldn't see a way out of this place, not unless he wanted the filthy marines to shoot his brothers dead. Arlong groaned as he rubbed his bruises. They hurt as much as his enemy boasted of being made of rubber. His hits hurt like a truck, and that woman, that blonde bitch, he would pay her and feed her 2 pigs the next time he sees her. Mere humans, Arlong mumbled. I would rise from the ashes. Again, the fishermen would dominate you all. Just you wait, I will get out of this. It was then when Arlong sensed 2 objects rushing from under the sea. His fisherman senses flared up as he felt a huge danger rush towards the ship. Boom! Soon something hit the ship as it created a huge explosion. The wooden ship cracked up and fire engulfed the whole place, and immediately, a huge part of the cell was broken apart. Arlong saw an opportunity and looked at his brothers. Everyone, he grinned, jumped to the sea. Her name is Marianne, a teenage girl at the age of 16, but fate doesn't care about age. And thus, after becoming a victim of fate, she joined the Wingless Valkyrie and even managed to climb the top rankings. At first, when she joined the organization, she was a laid-back person who always looked out for a chance to relax. But after her boss' harsh training session, she knew this job has to be taken seriously or she would experience something worse than death. Yes, she still looks out for time to relax, but when she is on a mission, she enters her professional persona. Unlike her peers, she doesn't have a devil fruit ability. She has a power called Color's Trap, a special painting skill. This is a powerful ability. This was taught to her by her deceased mother. This is her last treasure, and although she didn't want to use it for crime, she has to. Currently, she is doing exactly that. Marianne was riding a submarine. This is her personal submarine that was given by the Lord of Wingless Valkyrie. She is spying through the camera of the ship, looking at a marine ship that is escorting a few people her boss, Amon, is interested in. The Arlong pirates, they were captured by the Marines 2 days ago after Monkey D. Luffy defeated him. After taking them to a temporary base, they are being moved to a proper marine base right now. Amon has ordered her to free them and bring them to Basta, and she would do it professionally. First thing first, Marianne mumbled. Let's blow the ship up, with a professional but cold look on her face. She pushed a button on the cockpit of the ship as 2 missiles appeared out of the ship's either side. Bertilda, after pushing another button, the missiles rushed towards the single marine ship and hit it hard, creating an explosion and destroying more than half of the ship in seconds. Boom, cannonballs are outdated. Missiles for the win. That's what her boss had said, and it seems he was right. Marianne stared at the destruction in front of her with more than slightly awe-filled eyes. Before the explosion could even subside, Marianne noticed some humanoid figures with strange skin colors coming out of a broken part of the ship, jumping out into the sea. Marianne ignored the burning ship and rather focused the camera on the humanoid figures. But before she could completely shift the camera, a silhouette appeared in the monitor, a blue face with a long blade-like nose. It didn't look anything like a human. Still, Marianne could recognize the scowl he was wearing, even with his clearly not humane looks. Was it you who shot the bomb? Strangely, the humanoid figure talked even though he was under the water. What is your goal? Marianne maintained her professional expression and noted the individual. Blue skin, blade-like nose, Fishman Arlong of the Old Sun Pirates. Her target, she wasn't allowed to kill him, but she was allowed to hurt him badly. Without wasting a second, Marianne pushed another button on the cockpit as a small part of the floor below her slid open. Water didn't spring out because of the position of the ship, but Arlong quite easily climbed up. At first, when Arlong's eyes landed upon her, noticing that she is a human, the scowl on his face deepened, but it didn't last a second as Marianne touched the wall beside her, and a green symbol was painted in a matter of milliseconds. Immediately, Arlong blinked. A calming feeling showered over him. Marianne nodded to herself. Her calming green had worked perfectly. This would control the agitated fishman to not lose his calm and attack her, losing his limbs in the process. Colors, trap. With this power, Marianne can change a person's personality through the use of certain colors, changing their behavior as she sees fit. It works through the use of a symbol, which she paints either directly onto a person or near them. Once the person is under the spell of colors trap, they are unable to break out of it unless the symbol is removed or smeared. The trap overrides all other actions attempted by the person under its influence, forcing them to do whatever the trap suggests, no matter what. This was an overpowered ability from the get-go, but after getting her hands on tattoo fruit, given by her boss, she is able to paint these symbols with just her imagination alone. Unless the person has strong hockey, they won't be able to stay the same under her power's effect. Seeing Arlong calm down, she smiled. Of course, professionally. Welcome, Mr. Arlong. Please refrain from attacking me. I was sent by Sky Emperor Amon. He is allied with the Fishman Island, as you know. Arlong, still under the effect of calming green, widened his eyes and stared at Marianne's childish face. So, can you explain this strange feeling in the air? Raki asked, looking around the massive training hall. Other than herself and the other 5 sins, only Amon and Aisa were present there. But what was strange was the drawings all around them. Black, white, red, blue, green, yellow, purple, and rainbow. All these colors were used to paint different symbols on small sheets of paper that were glued to the walls all around the training hall. Raki was curious at what they meant, but she was quite sure the colors are the reason why she was feeling stranger than normal. Amon was standing topless, showing his stacked and rocky muscles. He heard Raki's question and nodded. You don't need to worry about that. Basically, they affect your will and mold it accordingly. Wiper frowned hearing him, but he continued regardless. Currently, they are working to boost your attention and fighting spirit. That's all they are doing. And as for why, you'd soon find out. Raki was still curious as to where he learned to make these symbols, but she didn't pry too much. On the other hand, Amon noted everyone's expression at the revelation that their will is being meddled with. While most didn't care, Wiper had frowned before, but after realizing that it's just his fighting spirit and attention, he also calmed down. This was an advanced application of Marianne's colors trap. He learned it from Marianne herself, which took a generous amount of his time, though at least he has reached the advanced level. Normally, reaching this level would take someone at least 10 years of training, since one has to memorize the effect of every color, along with a mix of each color, and also 10 of this variant, 5 of that variant, 15 of another variant, and so on, would do when mixed. After entering his top speed, within a slowed-down world, Amon was able to memorize all these in a very short period. Somewhat like a hyperbolic time chamber, but not quite the same. Anyway, Amon smiled at the scene. So, everyone, do you know why I called you? All of them shook their heads. 2 reasons. 1, I am here to talk about hockey and stuff, Amon said. All of you have a pretty overpowered devil fruit, except for, we glanced at Sumi. Anyway, the point is, devil fruit powers become useless when you're against a master, or even advanced level hockey users. You guys know the basics, but have no idea what advanced and master level hockey can achieve. It applies to my Goro no Mi, as well, Amon added. As powerful as my fruit may be, I can't hurt someone who is covered by super high level armament, and I am talking from experience. He glanced at Raki. Now the best hockey user among you is Hancock and Raki, obviously. Since Raki was taught hockey by myself on the moon, Hancock was caught off guard because of the sudden compliment but maintained her indifferent expression. Amon continued. While Raki has achieved advanced armament, she can only use the repulsion force part of it, as she is yet to learn the external projection that is called Ra. Meanwhile, Amon paused. Hancock has both the repulsion and external projection part of the advanced armament. She was taught by the Pirate King's right-hand man, after all. Hancock didn't mean to, but her lips automatically curled upwards. Knowing that she has better hockey than Raki was one thing, but being told that out loud made her proud. Hancock revealed all her secrets to Amon, such as what she went through when she was a slave, what happened after she escaped, and even the part where Rayleigh used to teach her hockey every now and then. The reason why Wiper couldn't coat himself in Conqueror's hockey but Hancock could, lay in the fact that she is pretty good at advanced armament already. It was when Wiper opened his mouth, so there are more steps to hockey. Why are you telling this to us now? I am sure it would have helped to know them before. Amon shook his head at that. Not necessarily. While it may seem like advanced should be better than the primary application of hockey, You would need a good enough foundation for it to be true, he continued. Let's take the Boa sisters for example. Those two have weak armament, yet they can use the repulsion part of advanced armament. But that doesn't mean they would be able to beat Virgo, a Marine Vice Admiral who is heavily dependent on primary armament hockey. Generally speaking, advanced armament is better than primary armament. But if your primary armament is weak, the advanced form would be weak too, he continued. Take this, for example. Suppose Wiper's primary armament is 10 and Rocky's is 30. So when Wiper uses advanced arm, he would get a 2-time boost at power, meaning he would reach 20. Still weaker than Raki. No. In a similar case, when Raki would use her advanced armament, she would get a 2-time boost too, meaning she would reach power level 60, right? So ask yourself, which is better? Everyone was silent for a second. That was a good way to put things. Now it was clearer than water why Amon didn't tell them about advanced applications of hockey before, since for sure, they would have tried to learn it and waste time that could have been used to increase their base. Of course, even though I did use a 2-times boost as an example, that's just an example. Don't forget that. Something like that doesn't exist in real-life applications, Amon added. So, back to square one. Now can anyone guess why I have called you here? To teach us the advanced form of armament. Wiper was the one to answer. Right, 10 points to Wiper. That's the second reason why I called you guys here. I would teach you all the advanced armament in the roughest way, by fighting. While Wiper scoffed, Raki frowned. And how do you want the fight to happen? We can't seriously win against you. Seeing Amon laugh, she growled, ugh. Amon shook his head and said, either way, at first I didn't want to make this a battle of devil fruits, since if it was, it would destroy the whole island, which I don't want to happen. But there is a catch. Hockey is user-friendly, also user-devil fruit-friendly. This caused them to get curious. Excluding Raki, suppose. Wiper, he can clad his arms in hockey and then heat it up. Normally, if he can reach, let's say, 2000 C, he would be able to reach more as the armament-clad arm would act as some kind of heat-conductive material and boost it. Amon continued. Same goes with my fruit. I can clad my hands with armament and it would be a super electricity conductive material that can't be made by normal means. After a short silence from everybody, Amon released a fake cough at him then. Wear these please. He slid his hands in his pockets and took out 6 gray-colored rings and threw them to the Sins who caught them. And these are, Sumi asked, sea stone rings. But unlike the normal sea stones, it wouldn't render you to lose your strength, and would rather only block your devil fruit, though not completely. You would only be able to use 10% of your powers. This caused Hancock, who had the most knowledge about the Blue Sea among the people here, to gasp. Amon continued. I would wear one too, but mine is different. It blocks me from using my fruit power at all. And before you say I am overestimating myself, wait until the end of the match. Amon smirked, causing Rocky and Wiper to groan. Meanwhile, Hancock questioned, but how did you get these rings? Is making sea stone with these types of custom rules even possible? Hancock asked as she checked the ring. Indeed, even though she was touching it, she didn't feel her strength depart away. Amon nodded at her. He got the idea after recalling Wano arc. There, Luffy was put on a collar made of sea stone, yet he could exert enough strength to not only use hockey, but even reach the advanced form. That collar was surely sea stone, but a modified one. But as Hancock said, making something like that was hard as fuck. But with a supercomputer that has been strengthened with Germa technology, it wasn't impossible to create. And since he was one of the underworld overlords in his Mr. Fool persona, he didn't have any lack of sea stone. The current Amon is rich. The ownership of Grand Tesoro has been officially changed to Amon's name. He had enough influence on the world to really be called an emperor. Unlike before, many things have happened in the past 2 years. One of those things is Amon's influence even surpassing most of the emperors, though currently, he is more of a famous businessman than an infamous monster. Well, that can be changed after the War of the Best. I wonder how the title of strongest man alive would feel like. Amon laughed coldly as he watched everyone put on the rings. So, is everyone ready? Amon asked as everyone nodded. They had worn the rings that Amon had worn as well. 10% devil fruit power. Not enough to be a hindrance in learning advanced hockey. Soon the Sins surrounded him, but he smirked and cracked his knuckles. Since my little sister is watching, he glanced at a far corner where Aisa was sitting with a bag of chips in her hand. I am going to show off a little.